pace has dropped for another round of soccer down here. It is Tuesday, therefore, ergo, and just because it's a Tuesday, it's Tuesday Thoughts. And so we've got Tuesday Thoughts having to do with the playoffs from last night. We will get into that. We've got some Ballon d'Or stuff to get into. Karim Benzema gets his Ballon d'Or and the other awards that went along that night. There's some news overseas that we'll get into once Jared has departed at the top of the hour. But Jared, good morning, first and foremost.
Good morning to everyone except Miami's defense.
Okay.
You don't get a good morning.
No.
You get a what was that?
Yes, you do.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. I'm also angry.
I can see the question marks forming over your head.
A special good morning, though, to Dane St. Clair, because no goalkeeper should be tortured that closely by two Panenkas. We were talking about a pre-show. FC Dallas beating Minnesota in the PK shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Two Panenkas, one to bookending the whole damn thing.
Yes.
The first one, not perfectly taken. Dane St. Clair, who apparently has Gumby limbs, able to get a touch to it and deflects it into the far corner of the net, which is just a touch of cruelty that can only be matched by Alan Velasco, bookending the shootout with another Panenka. And I feel bad for Dane St. Clair because Dane St. Clair had a great game. Mm-hmm. Dane St. Clair had an amazing season.
Yes.
Played his way into that starting job and was fantastic. The perfect Panenka was the second one because it's not a perfectly taken Panenka. And Dane St. Clair guesses to the correct direction, which is his left and the taker's right. And as he's laying on the ground, he sticks a paw up there in desperate vain to try and get a touch to the ball, but it's just out of reach. And I bet if you asked him, he'd say, yeah, that ball went in slow motion.
Yep.
Not unlike the Tennessee field goal that was aptly described as a depth charge coming off of a guy's foot that just sailed through in slow motion. This ball lofted in slow motion, sailing in the air, much as the way that a brick would, over Dane St. Clair's hand, and Minnesota's punishment was sufficed.
Well, and I mean, you see on the second one, you see on the Velasco Panenka, Velasco puts his foot into it. St. Clair guesses correctly to his left, and there's still enough time after the dive for St. Clair to kind of work his way up onto his right side and lift himself up a little bit and try to take a swipe at it as it's still trying to work its way into the net. That's the kind of second chance that Dane St. Clair had in trying to make sure that ball did not go into the net. It was going in that slow of a motion where you miss initially, you prop yourself up, and then try to take another swipe at it, and then you missed twice. But, yeah, Panenka to start, Panenka to finish, and we'll get into it more as we go this morning. But opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And for those of you watching on Twitch, there's your QR code. Just sits there, and it just penetrates the screen right there in the middle. Takes the middle third away, gives me the left channel, gives Jarrett the right channel. And you get the QR code for Kickoff Coffee right down the middle of the pitch. Kickoffcoffeeco.com. You can follow along with them on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. If you should choose to get your supply of Kickoff Coffee, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. Then you get 15% off of your purchase. And also our friends at Kickoff Coffee take 10% of the purchase. They roll it over into youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. So my question for you, Jarrett, for the opening kickoff this morning, the taco that we saw at Toyota Stadium, the thing that looked like its own lawyer's briefcase, would you participate and would you partake in having said taco if you maybe hadn't eaten earlier in the day, or maybe hadn't eaten for the previous 2 days? Would you eat that taco? Would you drop the $16 to get that big ass taco, and would you eat it, sir?
I don't know that I would drop $16 because I've been spoiled by the existence of Mercedes-Benz Stadium
True.
and their cheap food.
Yes.
Also, while I do love stadium food, I am incredibly not a fancy human being when it comes to stadium food, and I do not need expensive things in my life when it comes to stadium food. I'm not really willing to drop $16. Also, hard shell tacos are my least favorite kind of taco.
Agreed.
I prefer mine al pastor in a corn tortilla, nice and cozy and warm.
Yes.
That's just me. Everyone's got their preference.
Yes.
But I'm not probably dropping $16 on a taco. So as I say that, also remembering that at one point I ate a thing at a Braves game once called a tater tot chop that I can't even really describe what it was.
Okay.
It was like a bunch of tater tots and bacon, like pressed into a waffle iron into basically like a Waffle House waffle iron shape, and then like covered with like chives and spices and sauce. I've put my digestive tract through its own D-Day experience, but yeah, I'm not paying $16 for a taco. It is majestic. I absolutely think it's a majestic taco. I appreciate how casual Dallas's social media team was about it. We're like, it's just a taco.
Yeah, it's a taco.
It's a taco, guys. It's going to be okay. It's just a taco.
Yes.
While we were all like, wow, it's a giant ass taco. No, and that's what it is, guys. It's just a really big taco, and that's cool. And we're easily amused. Both of those things are kind of where we're at right now. Yeah, I'm probably not spending that much money on a taco though. I'm not going to spend that much money on a taco when I can go like a half a mile away from Osborne High School to the taco truck and get like dollar tacos that are really good.
True.
Just go. I think it's on the other end of, like, if you're on Favor Road, which runs along Windy Hill Road outside of Osborne.
Yes.
Come out of the school, take a right, cross over Windy Hill, and go like, I don't know, man, quarter mile, and there's a giant RV looking thing where they'll sell like dollar tacos. It's really good.
Yeah, and that was I will stipulate that one of the best taco chasing experiences I ever had was sadly after the loss of Atlanta United losing to Club America at Mexico City. The following afternoon for lunch, after doing the show, went out and walked just outside the hospital complex where I was staying in the Holiday Inn, and they had street vendors for those kinds of things. And I probably picked up 4 or 5 freshly made street vendor tacos right off the grill that had, and I had like a couple of each of their beef and of their chicken, but they also had onions, peppers, potatoes, the whole thing. That was some of the best tacos that I've ever had in my entire life for lunch. But as I was running my errands, trying to make sure that I could actually get back into the country the next day. So that was one of my best experiences when it comes to getting those kinds of tacos. Michael Head's in this morning. He says that MBS has raised prices. Not sure if the fan-friendly idea is gone, but beers, food, etc., are much more expensive than they were in 2017 and 2018.
It's still cheaper than a Braves game.
True. That is absolutely
and we've had and I've seen a number. And to your point, Michael, you're right. It is more expensive, and I hate that. It's still cheap enough that other fans come to MBS like, this is great. We're spoiled, man, on that front of things. On the food side of things, we kind of been spoiled. And then if you want to like shell out the money for Delia's chicken, you can. Yeah. There was a Jim and Nick's in there at one point. I think they replaced it with a different barbecue, which is fine.
Yeah,
Jim and Nick's being good chain barbecue, but go local for your barbecue if and when possible.
Yes, absolutely.
I am personally an acolyte of the heirloom market. Yeah, prices have changed. We're still spoiled a bit, but David, we're starting with tacos down here because I don't. In case you saw it, in case you didn't see it, and this is an art form, by the way, and I take a lot of pride in this, and I'm proud of the cameraman who found this, because
Yes.
the best thing you can do when you're on sticks is to find something that becomes a talking point and is funny to literally everyone. Someone was eating a giant taco about the size of a Wolverine,
Yeah.
and it's $16 taco. Would you want it?
Yep.
I don't know if you're like, yeah, Fox Brothers. That's what Fox Brothers is there, which Fox Brothers is great. Um, yourself some barbecue if you're at the game, and Fox, you can do a lot worse in life, not just Atlanta, but in life
Yes.
than
True.
Fox Brothers.
Yes.
Yeah, David, I already gave a semi uh, morning over for Dane St. Clair just getting dunked on repeatedly with
Yes.
Panenkas
Yes.
in his attempt. We'll get into the both games here in a minute. But yes, the giant taco is something else, man. It's something else.
Yes.
I don't love hard shell tacos personally,
No.
but I'm fascinated that they have a giant ass taco.
Yeah. Too much of a mess. And just ask Devontae Adams about what hard shell tacos can do to your house. If recent commercials can lend anything. But yeah, David, we always will have the opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And there's your QR code that is on this banner here to my right, to your left as you're watching. But for those of you watching on Twitch, but I just got to the point where I'm just trying to figure out, okay, how can we show the QR code and try to get it closer to the lens? And so that was how I ended up getting that particular image of the opening kickoff. So it's that way.
So let's ask this question then, as we slowly exit the plane into actual soccer discussion. What giant food would you like to have at your stadium?
Oh, there you go.
Giant
Okay.
tacos. Like, okay, well, what giant food would you like to have? I'm gonna actually you tell me your giant food. I'm gonna look up what they used to have at Turner Field. I have to remember what it was called, but I'll find it in a second. Go ahead.
Okay, so you look up Turner Field. I'll finish the promo. Once again, kickoffcoffeeco.com, kickoffcoffeeco, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Use the code SoccerDownHere15, and you get 15% off of your purchase, and then they take 10% and reinvest it into the youth game. So, the opening kickoff is reserved totally for sidebars like that, and it's usually a question of the day for those of you that are just kind of tuning in for the first time. And so that's just kind of where we are. I literally got up I was up late last night, and the image of that American Tourister sized taco. That's your Google search for today, kids, looking up American Tourister. It stuck in my head. And so I was like, okay, I don't know if I would partake in something like that, but others have, and they seem to be enjoying themselves and making a mess. Okay, so what'd you find with the menu?
So this was what they had. I think it was the last season or second to last season at Turner Field. They had what was called the Burgerizza, if you remember this.
Yes.
So it's like over a pound of beef covered in cheese, just a giant sin of a piece of food.
Yes.
And then the bun was 2 personal pan pizzas.
Oh, God. Yes. Oh, no. Oh, I actually remember this now. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so 20 ounces beef patty covered with 5 slices of cheddar cheese, bacon, served between 2 8-inch pepperoni pizzas.
Yeah.
Wow,
okay.
Yeah, I remember being at a Braves game at Turner Field, watching someone sitting in the concourse eating that with 2 silver bullets sitting next to him, and just thinking that's a warrior right there.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you just hope that he was either coming off of a doctor's appointment for his yearly physical, or he could space himself out a couple of days before he had his yearly physical, because that stuff would absolutely just kind of hang.
That's tanking yourself.
Yes.
Here are the other things they had there, because the last years of Turner Field, this is one of my favorite topics to discuss. The last year of Turner Field, you can't convince me that they were not trying to absolutely salt the earth of the fan base inside the city before they moved to Cobb County.
Yeah.
They also had something called the Everything Dog, $15 foot-long hot dog with fries, chili, nacho chips, beer cheese, and jalapenos, topped with popcorn and drizzled with Coca-Cola infused barbecue sauce, served in a pretzel bun.
Wow.
The tater tot chop, which is the one I had, I'm guilty of this sin personally. Tater tots pressed into a waffle iron, loaded with bacon, melted cheese, jalapenos, topped with a second tater tot waffle, and
Wow.
served with Coca-Cola infused ketchup, which was really overrated.
Wow.
Um, the Punisher, which was a country fried smoked rib meat slathered in Monster Energy infused barbecue sauce,
God.
topped with fresh cut beer battered onion rings and salsa, which is a mixture of cold slaw and salsa,
Yeah.
tucked between a toasted and buttered Hawaiian bun,
Oh
and
no.
pinned in place with 2 slices of candied bacon.
Wow. Wow.
They also did the Top and Go, which was Fritos topped with chili and cheese, or Doritos topped with pulled pork, like in the bag.
Oh, see, that's too messy though. And that's too much that's out of your control. You've got to be in a situation where you can control the mess and all of the contents. You can't just sit there, and I'm sure that they just poured it all into a bag, shook the bag up, and gave you the bag. And that's counterproductive to actually accomplishing your task, I think.
The Sausage Sundae. Smoked sausage, split
Okay.
down the middle, and topped with macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes, and pulled pork, finished off with barbecue sauce and a cherry tomato.
I could do everything but
Because I know you could. But yeah, Turner Field, the Braves were trying to salt the earth on their fan base the last season before they moved to Cobb County.
No question.
The Punisher is the one that kills me because I cannot imagine someone sitting there. Someone had the idea of, what if barbecue sauce, but Monster Energy too?
Ugh, wow. Wow.
David, go look up the Trash Pandas had one this year. It was like the dumpster roll.
Oh yeah.
That looked absolutely like, if you eat it, you got to take 2 days off for your body to like. It'd be it's like, it's the food equivalent to saturation diving, where after you eat it, you have to basically take a couple days for your body to readjust to the real world.
Okay, so it is the Trash Pandas dumpster wrap.
Yes.
And it is for those of you that enjoy the Rocket City Trash Pandas
As you should.
in the Shoals. And
well, they're in Huntsville. So.
Yes. The dumpster
for those who don't, I'm just clarifying for people who may not know Alabama geography.
Yes, they are in the northern third. They're in Huntsville. So the dumpster wrap, according to this article from AL.com, is a 5-tool player: 2 hot dogs,
that's one way to describe it,
French fries, homemade chili, fried jalapeno caps, and chipotle aioli, all rolled up in a warm cheese quesadilla. So that is your dumpster wrap.
Yes.
And full disclosure, there were some stories that were put out by the Huntsville media when the season started for your Rocket City Trash Pandas, and they actually went through and did an entire segment on all of the food that was available at the park. And if I can find it, I will put it in our conversation in the Twitch pitch, because asking me to put it in the Discord is probably a little too much. But I will link to the story that explains all of the food that you can have. And it was an adventure of getting everything, everything in your power right there when it comes to ballpark food. Soccer for Good OG had a heart attack just listening to this opening segment. David, Texas or Houston had a boomstick, was a 2-foot chili dog or something. Someone else had a giant hot dog with cereal on it.
Yes. Stadium foods are all about pushing. Stadium foods are the closest we'll ever come to Dr. Ian Malcolm in the original Jurassic Park, talking about your scientists were so concerned with what they could do, they never stopped to think what they should do. That's as close as we're ever going to come as a society.
Yes. The legit question by the Soccer for Good OG: what were they smoking? That's some good Cheech and Chong ish right there.
Well, here's the thing. I contended for a very long time that the people who made Taco Bell great back in the day.
Yeah.
They just went around dorms and just asked people, "Hey, what do you make on a budget?"
Yeah.
And then Taco Bell screwed everything up by deciding they had to get fancy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, oh, we're gonna be great. We're gonna be a more upscale fast food Mexican. No, don't be Chipotle. Just be Taco Bell.
Upscale.
It's like what was tragic was it was the story last week of the guy was like saying he spent $28 at Taco Bell and we all lost our minds.
Yeah.
It's not as difficult as it used to be because Taco Bell trying to get bougie on us, which is their greatest sin. Icarus has not only flown too close to the sun, he's flown inside the damn sun at this point. He's taken up residency in the core.
Yes. Let's see. And so, yes, thank you, Michael, for fixing my northern Alabama geography. But no, I have no earthly idea, OG, what an aioli is other than some kind of a sauce that you were to put on top of it.
We're going to get you coached up one day. It's okay.
Yeah.
Let's, man, okay. So,
yes.
Which game do you want to start with? I don't even know.
Let's go backward. I mean, because we were having so much fun discussing the bookend Panenkas, and so let's start with Dallas and Minnesota, and what was going through your mind as you were watching Dallas and seeing Minnesota score first. Oops, that was not planned.
It was a very funny goal, though.
Oh,
it was a very funny goal. Like, it's a great ball over the top. It's a great touch. And then I got an idea. Is it a good idea? Well, it's an idea.
Mm-hmm.
It basically is the energy of that entire sequence. And it was hilarious. Then Dallas wakes up. I actually was like kind of laughing to myself at Matt Doyle's accurate comment of, someone please tell Dallas that if they don't score a goal here, they're going to have to face Dane St. Clair in penalties.
True.
And they did, and it worked out because, again, the gods saw fit and decided that Dane St. Clair was not worthy of anything other than just massive punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did his job.
Yes. Absolutely.
And it just didn't go, man. Two Panenkas, neither one of them perfect, and both of them torturous in the way they were almost saved.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, off of his foot into the far side netting for a goal. The second one, right over his outstretched hand in slow motion.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
sucks. That sucks. Minnesota will be an interesting one for us to detox on in the offseason because this is a team that was an absolute tire fire.
Oh, absolutely.
For the middle of the season, and then they re-signed their manager, and we were like, that's the worst part. The worst part was the timing. Like,
yes,
Adrian Heath ultimately had a good season.
Ultimate.
The timing of that extension could not have been worse.
Mm-mm.
If you I don't know. I'm running out of an analogy to think of how you could have made that worse for an extension. But the actual function of it, it's fine. I mean, you've got you announce it right after you lose to the Murder Owls of Union Omaha.
Yes.
But then things get going. Reynoso shows Reynoso quality. She showed Reynoso qualities last night. Reynoso scores the goal after the ball kind of bounces around, gets over top, fires a great shot, gives yourself a road lead, and then Dallas basically leans forward with the controls in hand. Mm-hmm. Minnesota will be interesting to detox a bit here because I don't think they're not terrible, man.
No,
I just don't know what I don't know. I don't know where they improve. But they have a great goalkeeper. They have a great number 10. Maybe more consistent offensive threats. God forbid Inchi ever in his life have a functioning number 9 for more than like a little bit at a time. The closest he has ever had to that was Christian Ramirez for a little bit, like for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they sell Christian Ramirez, who is, and look, y'all, if y'all don't know,
yes,
Christian Ramirez is a club legend in Minnesota back to the NASL days. When they traded him to LA, that wasn't just like a light little thing. That was a huge deal. You traded a club legend.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like languishing in Aberdeen doing nothing after scoring a bunch of goals last year because
Yeah,
the Aberdeen situation's weird.
it's
But it's that's a weird one to kind of dissect. But holy Moses, Batman! Like they get a consistent striker, maybe they'll be fun. I don't know.
yeah. Stats on the night: Dallas had possession 60-40. Shots, you were correct, 19-7 on the night. Shots on goal 9-3 for Dallas. Passing accuracy, one was north of 80%, the other one was not. Offsides, duels, won 50-50 basically of the 113 that were there. 8 saves for St. Clair on the night. 35 fouls on the night, 19 of them for Minnesota. And going back into the penalty kick situation, Will Trapp, who was second for Minnesota, did not look like he was.
He looked like Bambi trying to cross the interstate.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's just like you ever have that, and everybody knows that image in their head of, hey, you know that one player that's about to take a PK, and you look at me and you're like, oh, he's not ready for this.
No.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
He was not prepared for that moment. And the keeper for
Pice, yeah.
the keeper for Dallas just read him like a book, man.
Mm-hmm. And it was, and that gave Dallas the advantage, and that was what they needed all the way through. Guignon, by all accounts, had one of his best games that he's ever had in an FC Dallas jersey, and this was the time to do it. And so Dallas moves on, and Dallas heads south next week or later this week to go up against Austin. So you have a Copa Tejas semifinal in the Western Conference. Let's go to the East and go over what we saw with Inter Miami and NYC. First and foremost, we were looking at the starting lineups in this one and in the 18s, and NYC had no Tavon Gray and they had no Talis Magno. And we were all going back and forth with each other in our own pregame conversation, and we're like, NYCFC is screwed.
Yeah, we thought they were in trouble. What we didn't account for was the fact that that defense would be optional.
Yeah.
For Miami.
Oof.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, Michael. I mean, yeah, we'll critique them at length because they played yesterday. I've spent my time critiquing Atlanta after when they just whatever the hell decision day was. There'll be plenty of time to critique them as well beyond that, man. But we're gonna critique the teams who got knocked out of the playoffs because they made the playoffs and that's great. But how can they get better? Because every team's going to have that conversation of what's their next step to get better.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't good enough, they're going to take steps to get better the same way that Atlanta should take steps, the same way that Columbus has taken steps. Everybody's going to take steps to try and get better. Miami's steps probably be defending. I don't know if Bryce Duke wasn't 90 minutes fit or what.
Yeah.
It was weird seeing Bryce Duke not playing in that game until like the 85th minute.
Yeah. He came in for the last 10. Yeah.
Man, if New York City had lost that game, you'd have had a Joker origin story for half that fan base because they almost dented the woodwork. They hit it so many times in the first 30, 45 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
Jim McElwain, once saying after the LSU Florida game and it probably should have been worse. This was 3-0, and 2 of those came late when you're basically double tapping. Mm-hmm. It probably should have been worse.
Yeah. Pereira scores in the 63rd. Maxi Morales scores 6 minutes later. Santi Rodriguez had a very busy night. He had 2 assistances, and within 2 minutes, it was 2-0, and with 20 to go, and then Eber scores on just an awful turnover for Miami. So Eber scores at 90+2. And then NYC subbed in Pellegrini at 90+4 just to kind of give him a cup of
Yeah, just to
coffee.
spike the football. The Pellegrini victory cigar was pretty brutal. It'd be like, but I mean, it's right up there with if Miami had made it far enough to Philadelphia and lost on a hat trick to Carranza.
True. 23 fouls on the night. It was 12-11 to the visitors. Looking at passing accuracy, both above 80%. Shots on goal, 9 for NYC, 4 for Inter Miami. 12 shots to 27. 27 shots for NYC. Thus, to your original point about the defense, possession was basically 52-48 on the night. And NYC gets to move on to the next round as well.
They earned it, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow, did they earn it?
And it was the last match, we're fairly certain, for Gonzalo Higuain.
Oh, he's already said it's the last match. Not
Yeah,
even fairly certain.
I know, but just it's like we sit there and it's just like, yeah, okay. You say
he's not going to pull a Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He's not going to sabotage his marriage to come back and get beaten up by Grady Jarrett.
And our guy Dylan Butler was there covering it last night, and it was an interesting post-match press conference that Gonzalo Higuain had, and what he wants to do with his future. And I thought that it was really, really interesting that what he wants to do now, once he's kind of calmed down and he realizes and remembers that he's retired, is that he wants to focus, he wants to be a coach, and he also wants to help on mental health initiatives, which I thought was very, very cool to hear someone say that, considering that his issues that he admitted were part and parcel to his problems there at Inter Miami had to do with social media bullying as a part of it. And now he wants to be a part of the solution, having been experiencing the slings and arrows of social media. I thought that was very, very cool that he wants to do that, Jared.
Yeah, it's something that I think other teams are going to have to consider, not just, one team, but like it's something that's going to have to be considered by teams going forward, because that's something that's becoming more of a mainstream discussion, that teams need to have somebody on staff to handle mental health situations, because the mental health of players is very important, and it's always been important, but it's becoming a more of a mainstream thing, and it's good for him to put it out there like that. And hopefully he's able to get what he wants out of it and be a positive influence for others.
Yeah. Trying to find the actual quote. Sit-down interview with Goal. He doesn't plan to stay involved with the sport at the top level, citing the toxic nature of the game that's impacted his mental health. Did leave the door open, looking to become a mental health coach for young players. Quote, I don't think there's enough emphasis on the importance of mental health, especially in football, and I'd love to help young people. And so now that we've got those quotes out there, it'll be an interesting discussion that we have on Friday, because I think it's Greg Garza's turn. And so when our friends from Beyond Goals pop up on Friday, having this discussion about what Gonzalo Higuain wants to do with his days, I thought that was really cool. And so we'll see what happens with that. David, to your point, MLS was much more entertaining than overtime in the NFL yesterday. I think it's much more entertaining than most overtimes in the NFL, not just yesterday, when you have a struggling Denver team that has as many yards offensively in the second, third, and fourth quarters as they did in the first, having gone away from their game. Thankfully for me and my having Cortland Sutton on my fantasy team, really didn't need him a whole lot. So I already had the win booked away. But, yeah, that was pretty painful. And I will take watching those two matches that we saw last night over what we saw from the NFL, no doubt. Yeah. So contributor Niall, going back to the PK from Velasco, absolute filth. St. Clair has a family. That is true, Niall. But Dane and the family reunion almost grabbed that Velasco Panenka. I mean, he kept taking swats at it.
It would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
If he had gotten a touch to it, there's an argument to be made for, hey, they might win now. They might get a boost out of this, and they might be okay. But then they weren't.
Yes.
because the universe chose you, Minnesota, to just kick in the stomach.
Yes.
Congratulations. Have a great day.
Yes. The attendance last night at Citi Field, a little over 18,000. At least that's what was announced. I'm guessing what they did, because I didn't see a whole lot of crowd cutaways at Citi Field.
No, a lot of tight shots. Whoever's punching that show told them, "Hey, you get crowd, you get it tight.
Mm-hmm.
Tight shots of the crowd. We got a lot of gaps in here."
Yes. And so it was tight shots, nothing but tight shots. I imagine that the 18,066 was tickets sold, not butts in seats.
Yeah.
And I would really like to know the actual turnstile number from last night. And we have railed on both Major League Soccer and on NYC plenty over their venue change with 5 days to go leading into it. Wiley said Citi Field looked terrible. You're not wrong, because you're having to sit there, and it's like a lot of the other baseball fields that we see that are converted into soccer facilities, whether it's New Mexico, it is Memphis. What other baseball facilities have we seen that have been converted?
Asheville back in the day before they got their stadium when they were in USL.
That was wow. Sounds Park. That was an adventure. That was.
Remember the preseason game where someone played a through ball or someone played a ball to Joseph. It went 5 feet and it just went stopped. Yeah.
Those kinds of facilities, and it, with the rain that had started in the second half, it really could have been bad with that emergency patch that was there on the infield dirt. David, they were supposed to lose last night, but apparently because of the raindrops that did not affect what was going on in Queens, they decided to postpone the game and not
playing it today at 4 p.m.
Yes. So for those of you that when we get into the soccer grid,
Yankees fans were booing.
Well,
They were showing the NYC game on the screen. So basically, Yankees fans showed up to watch NYC on the big screen at Yankee Stadium and then went home.
Yeah. Niles' question is an interesting one, considering what happened earlier this year. Niles wanting to know, is this the right time for Minnesota to part ways with Adrian Heath? Feel like they need to go in a different direction. I feel like we're having this conversation every year for the past 3 seasons, though.
Yeah, but I mean, you just re-upped him, and then after you re-upped him, they were getting the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was ready to bury him, and they started getting the job done. Mm-hmm. They were good. Mm-hmm. I think that's easier said. I think that's easier said than done at this point. Because my initial instinct during the season was, yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
But man, now, I don't know.
I know.
I don't think you do.
And I think mainly it's just because of the investment that you made, not what's going on. Because if you had not, and I get the Adrian Heath situation for me in Minnesota is very Gus Malzahnian at Auburn. And
Gus Malzahn has UCF on like the doorstep of a potential New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah,
and dropping 700 yards on Temple.
Yeah, well, come on.
But it's UCF, man.
Yeah, I know it's UCF. But what I mean by that, for those that may not have the base of knowledge in college football, is that Gus Malzahn, when he was at Auburn in his last couple of seasons, and Michael had backed me up on this, he was okay. And okay in the Southeastern Conference ain't really all that great if you're chasing after New Year's Day bowl games. But what he would end up doing is just enough to continue to keep himself hired and or get himself a rather large contract extension, contrary to what probably a fair majority of the alums and the fan base were looking for at the time. But it would always be that one win that would always keep him around. Oh, we're seeing promise.
Auburn's boosters are eternally locked in a Cold War, and it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ricky's not here for this.
Yeah. And I mean, you just have one of these moments with Gus Malzahn where he beats Nick Saban. He's like right there on the verge of another 7-5 year and another mediocre bowl game. It's like you're going to the Outback for the 5th time in 6 years. Then you beat Alabama, and you boost it a little bit, and you get yourself into the national conversation just enough. And I think that where Adrian Heath is concerned, Heath was doing enough, in quotation marks. And yeah, I'll just go ahead and use air quotes. He was just doing enough. But then there would be that one moment where you sit there and you see everything come together. And it's like, oh, there's promise. Oh, Adrian Heath, we're turning things around. And then you sign him to that contract extension.
But it worked. That's the thing, though. It worked. Like, they were playing well after the contract extension. My biggest critique of Adrian Heath will always and forever has always been the fact that he seems physically incapable of, like, getting a striker to play well. And I don't know what the deal is with that. But he gets, like, zero productivity out of his strikers. I don't know why. Minnesota's got stuff to fix this year. Niall talks about Red Bulls. Red Bulls always has stuff to fix. Red Bull, the budgets came out yesterday that teams are spending. Red Bull didn't spend much money. And we talked about, like, you need somebody to be that guy in these games, whether that's Reynoso, who Minnesota has him in spades because Reynoso's absolutely a monster. Velasco for Dallas, you need that guy. And, New York hasn't really had that guy. Patrick Klimala hasn't been great.
Yeah.
And Luquinhas was just not what you needed him to be.
Yeah.
What was the cat's name? Who was the midfielder they brought in? Who they're still in a legal argument with, I think. God, my mind just went blank. His great rating achievement in New York was kicking a ball at a fan.
Drew Yearwood?
No, this is a couple years ago. They brought him in to be the number 10.
Help us out.
Red Bull below
player.
Anyway, you've brought guys in. You've made a couple of those kind of moves, but it's never been somebody to get you over the hill. And yeah, that style is a great regular season style, but when teams we've talked about this before, when teams get cagey in the postseason and, they might get more defensive about stuff. I think it's much harder
Kaku.
Kaku, thank you. It's much harder to be that, like, that, almost bully ball aggressive style when teams are kind of, like, more hesitant to let you let you just run off with the ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, dude. It's interesting.
Because
I think we've run into this before with other teams that style just ain't it right now, man. It's tough, but it's really tough. It's tough to figure out.
Yes. And David, to answer your question about Adrian Heath and the Purple team, he was their coach in USL Pro for 4 years before they were promoted to Major League Soccer. He was there for basically a year and a half, playing 78 matches, winning 26. He was 26, 21, and 31, or 26, 31, and 21, win, loss, draw. 26 wins in 78 matches, winning basically a third of them. But he was there for a year and a half. And then after the season was over in 2016, he basically was just sitting around for 5 months and then got picked up by Minnesota just after Thanksgiving of 2016 and has been there ever since. 208 matches, 80 wins. So a win rate of about 38.5%. And you had a win rate in a year and a half in Orlando at 1/3. So those are your numbers on Adrian Heath when he was at the Purple team in MLS, and far more successful, obviously, in USL Pro before they promoted themselves. But yeah, only won 26 of 78 when he was in Orlando City. So yeah, that's your Adrian.
Remember Adrian Heath? There was talk that Adrian Heath was going to be was a candidate here.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Mm-hmm. And so we've seen what's been going on with Adrian Heath, and yeah. So Michael and I, of course, are having our own sidebar discussion about Brian Harsin and his lack of recruiting. Not just lack of recruiting prowess, but just lack of recruiting, considering that he pretty much gravy trained off of Chris Peterson's recruiting at Boise and continued to be successful there. And Alan Green, the athletics director at the University of Auburn, as he said in his first press conference or his first meet and greet with folks, decided to bring him in. And from what we understand from Philip Marshall, Harsin was the only one that wasn't vetted. And Alan Green basically said, I'm hiring the guy. And you guys can do whatever you want. He wasn't vetted, and I'm hiring him. So there you go. We saw how well that went at the they're looking for a new head coach. Let's see. You've got 10 minutes. So
you got me for less than that, buddy.
Oh, okay. Well, then I got you for 4. Then let me do this. Yesterday we went through the MLS Postseason Awards rundown. Yeah. And went through because we were starting it, and then you had to attend to real world business.
Yeah.
And so what I want to do is before you go is I want to go over those postseason award things, and I want to see.
We got MVP out of the way. So what's the second one?
Well, it was so Corey Rockwell named Assistant Referee of the Year. Ismail Elfath was named Ref of the Year. Your awards finalists, Niall, that's what I wanted to get to before Jared had to go. Goalkeeper of the Year for me seems like it's going to go to Blake because it's not going to be like a pitcher winning both MVP and Cy Young. Nominated in one, he'll win the other. Newcomer of the Year and Young Player of the Year, the two that I wanted to talk to you about before you go. Newcomer of the Year, Thiago Almada, Cucho, and Georgi Petrovic. Then,
I mean, it's an interesting race then because like Almada was the brightest star in a really tough season in Atlanta. If we want to be polite about it, we can be not polite about it.
Sure.
Cucho came in and basically put a shock to the system of Columbus. Columbus finished 2 points out of the playoffs, mostly because of their ineptitude at the end of games. But
and Caleb
it wasn't his fault.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if it goes to him, but yeah, man, Thiago Almada will have a claim to it. I just don't know if he'll have the raw stats that they'll look at and go, well, Atlanta. I'm wondering if voters look at it like, well, Atlanta was not great this year. So, how good can it be? And it's one of those things where like a really good player on a bad team doesn't always get the award.
Right. Which then,
unless it's like a unique situation. I mean, then there's examples that counter this, such as like, King Felix for years,
yes,
being recognized for what he was in Seattle.
Yeah.
There are exemptions to that rule, but a lot of times you'll see it bypass that one player who's on a bad team.
So then let me go to Young Player of the Year, where Thiago Almada is a finalist with Brenner and Jesus Ferreira.
How old is Brenner?
You're defined as a player age of 22 born on or after January 1st, 2000.
I feel like Brenner is like, I feel like he's been 22 for like 3 years.
I know. Let's see. January 16 of 2000. So he was 15 days to the good of the deadline for Young Player of the Year. He cleared it by 15.
I feel like he's older than that. That's my fault then.
Well, no, it's because we always sit there and we see players that we think have been around for quite some time. The Freddie Wagan, Joey Jones, all of those, the Gardner Minshew, the players that we think have been around for 7 or 8, years playing collegiately when they've really only just been around since they started as freshmen. So
yeah, Kefsey, none of these kids experienced Y2K. That they were not forged in those fires, and it makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I mean, is it Almada for newcomer and then Ferreira for young player? Even though we know what we saw with Cucho Hernandez, I think it's a 2-horse race for newcomer. And I think that because of Ferreira doing what he did
Yeah.
offensively in Dallas, I think that young player goes to Jesus Ferreira.
Yeah, I think so too. I would love for Almada to get one of them.
Yes.
That'd be awesome for him. You know what else might be awesome for him is if bodies start dropping at the rate, if keep dropping at the rate they're dropping for Argentina, there's a
Yes.
non-zero chance he gets a call about the World Cup. Even
Yes.
if it's the end of the bench, there's a
Yes.
non-zero chance he gets a call because they're losing midfielders left and right.
Correct. Comeback player of the year, I think it goes to Gonzalo Higuain over Kai Kamara, just as an attaboy for your time in Major League Soccer. I maintained yesterday that the 3 nominees for Humanitarian of the Year should just win the award anyway. Give something to all 3. Give them all Humanitarian of the Year for what they're doing. And
You weren't humane enough. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Be more humane.
Yes. And I said Wilfred Nancy for Coach of the Year over Jim Curtin and Steve Cherundolo.
Yeah, I'm going Nancy personally. Just everything they did, dude, did work, man. And here's the thing, like, I'm not opposed to other decisions. Like, if you want to give it to Jim Curtin on the grounds of like the last few years, I mean, okay, he's been really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm leaning more toward personally leaning more toward Wilfred Nancy with everything that he did and everything that he has taken over up there in Montreal.
Yep, no doubt. And that one's going to be fun. So, all right. So you're done for today, and
Yes.
we'll come back with you tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, then there we go. We'll have you as the predecessor for Dylan Butler. So enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
I will.
All right. So Jared Smith leaves us after the first hour of the show, which means that I get to put our music together and once again trim the music past 50% down to 15, so that way it doesn't blow anything out when I read the promo. So it's now time to read the promo. Brought to us by our friends at the Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of Everything STH. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's the Lemonize Service, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that lemonizes all organic odors, including those like pet, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use a Lemonize Service to lemonize bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. The turnkey process makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind to the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever, different than Febreze or our favorite masking agents that we have either under the kitchen sink or under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when you open the door and reach under the sink or you open the door above you in the cupboard and you pull out that particular masking agent of yours, when you spray it in the air, there's a reason they call it a masking agent, because all you're doing is masking the odor. You're not attacking the problem all the way down to the molecule, like our friends at Lemonize do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy. One of 2 ways, either cubic feet or parts per million, to come up with a price that is affordable for you. Offering results in 24 hours or less. And if you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go to the website. Once again, right there, lemonize.com. But do us a favor, as I grab my pen, as I traditionally do, after the .com, go /Atlanta, so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your problem, to avoid using a preposition to end a sentence. So your full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, Lemonize.com /Atlanta. Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of Everything STH. Lemonize Service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Fade the music. And it did kind of crashed out. But you see, every single morning I come back in and everything is reset. And so I have to go back in, knock that button away, knock this button away, make sure everything's fine, and work it in that direction. So now I have to pause it. So once again, when it comes back in the morning, then it's not blowing everybody out. And that's your public service when it comes to audio boards down here. All right. So David on the Twitch pitch, Bart Keeler, USMNT, This is a public service announcement. Bart Keeler, USM&T Black Friday Watch at Wild Leap. Open to reserve spots on Eventbrite. Beer and soccer is better than a crowded Walmart. I would imagine that the answer to that is always going to be yes. That is absolutely true. So that's what we're hunting at, and so we'll go from there. All right. We got news. We got news yesterday. We got news today, and anything else that is on your mind here in hour number 2. Reminders. Let me get into the reminders. We've also got to get into what is going on during today as well. What you can watch, where you can watch it in juice boxes, and we'll wrap up the show with that. Remember, programming today coming up on the network. It is your USL programming, taking a peek at the last week of the regular season for USL Championship and for League One. Prem and Proper is going to be available later in the day as well. And we're taping something that we can't talk about for the college football side of things over at OSG Sports, and that's going to be available next week on the network. Dylan Butler joining us tomorrow. And if I'm not mistaken, I will be doing some play-by-play down at Clayton State for their doubleheader tomorrow afternoon and evening at 5 and 7 o'clock, freezing in the Crow's Nest down at Laker Field. And then Thursday, once again, Thursday is our traditional power hour. We'll go through everything there very, very quickly as well. Thursdays with Nico, we should be able to have that one live Thursday afternoon for a change. So keep an eye, say 5 o'clock or so Eastern time. And it will be Thursdays with Nico on a Thursday. Friday, and we'll talk playoffs as well. So Friday, 9:05 start, 9:30 visit from our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. And we are efforting guests at 10 o'clock to talk about the playoffs in USL League One. And that is the week as far as I know it at the moment. And so hopefully we will sit there and go from there. So Kefsey is mentioning Flood Project, American Outlaws, and hopefully supporters groups available at the big to-do that is going to be on Black Friday and getting ready for everything. And I believe I'll be making a cameo because that is also a high school football playoff Friday for me at an as of yet unknown location. So I'm hoping that after we have all had our L-tryptophan and have sufficiently recovered, that if my location, and I believe that will be, is that quarterfinals? I think it's quarterfinals. So I think the quarterfinals in Georgia High School football playoffs will be that day. So I will probably come in for a cameo off the top before spiriting my way over and heading to our game of the week. So we'll keep an eye on that stuff as well. And Kefsey and David, thank you for the heads up on reminding us about the Bart Keeler Black Friday extravaganza at Wild Leap. So that will be very, very cool as the U.S. is playing a relatively important soccer match over in Qatar. So we get to see that on Black Friday. By the way, how many of you have even started your Christmas shopping yet? Just a question. Just wanted to know. Because I have not and probably will not for about another 6 weeks. But I do shop during the year. And so I do get a bit of a head start. And because I'm one of those guys that sits there and it's like, if somebody's having an off-season sale, 60, 70% off, and I'm sitting there going, okay, that looks pretty cool. I'll pick that up for somebody and then I'll keep it and I'll stash it someplace, and then that way they can have it for them. But I don't traditionally, I don't start my Christmas shopping for another 6 weeks or so. So that's, like I said, that's just me when it comes to shopping. So, all right. So hour number 2, let's get into the news of yesterday and the news of today and juice boxes, things like that. Anything else on your mind? We had the Ballon d'Or ceremony yesterday, the 66th Ballon d'Or. Karim Benzema, as it was requested by Ricky Ricardo yesterday, Karim Benzema gets the Ballon d'Or. Women's Ballon d'Or goes to Alexia Putellas for Barcelona. The Yashin Trophy goes to Thibaut Courtois. The Copa Trophy goes to Gavi. Gerd Mueller Award to Robert Lewandowski. The Socrates Prize to Sadio Mane. And the Club of the Year for both their men's and women's efforts goes to Manchester City. And that is the La Liga domination in Ballon d'Or is complete. The last time the Ballon d'Or wasn't won by a footballer playing in Spain was 2008 and Cristiano Ronaldo. And so that was what you were looking at. Benzema, he says, when he won the rather large award, he goes, my goal is to continue to enjoy playing football, to score and make my teammates score. The World Cup is the next challenge. Benzema has had a complicated history, and this is courtesy of our friends at AS. With France, coach Didier Deschamps, he insisted his Ballon d'Or triumph did not prove anything. Revenge doesn't help you grow. I don't want to dwell on my failures. They just give me more mental strength. I have no regrets. What happened, but what matters is what is happening today. And so full-blown coverage from our friends at AS and Barcelona once again, big winners Monday night. 3 of the 7 awards go to Barcelona players. Top scorer is the Gerd Muller Award, and yes, it was because of Lewandowski's time at Bayern. Gavi, the Copa, is the best U21 player, despite ruled out for a long-term injury. Good news for Alexia Putellas as she won her 2nd Ballon d'Or Feminine. Benzema, he said, seeing this award in front of me makes me really proud of the work I've done. It was a childhood dream to have the motivation. I had 2 role models, Zidane and Brazilian Ronaldo. Always had this dream in my mind that anything is possible. There was a difficult period where I wasn't in the French team, but I never stopped working hard or gave up. I'm really proud of my journey here. It wasn't easy. Was difficult to be here today for the first time. I'm happy, pleased for my work, and want to keep going. Bernd, you are absolutely correct. Trinity Rodman, for those of you that did not get the chance to see the procession, for those who were invited, you also had the owner of the Washington franchise that was there as a part of it. And for me, frankly, I just thought it was very cool of the growth and acceptance on some levels when you get to see a Trinity Rodman there at the Ballon d'Or. And I'm right there with you. She did win the red carpet, but it was great to see that kind of representation for both the U.S. women's team and for the NWSL there at the Ballon d'Or. But yes, and she admitted that she was stunned that going in that she was even nominated for it. But what she has been able to do with everything swirling around her in the NWSL has been tremendous. And it's really been cool to see her game grow in front of our eyes and to be able to see that. And we've got NWSL playoffs that we can get into. Let me check and see when the next round is after all of the craziness, and especially when you get to see Alex Morgan score later than late, so you can have teams continue to advance. You're looking at stuff on the weekend. It is Portland and San Diego, and it is rain and KC. KC was, I think, the shock of the weekend, making their way through the way that they did. So Portland, San Diego, heavyweight battle at 5 on CBS Sports Network, and then at 7:30 on the 23rd. Once again, it is the back end of the doubleheader. It is rain and Kansas City, and so 23rd is Sunday. So Sunday doubleheader, 5 and 7:30, CBS Sports Network, Portland, San Diego, rain and KC. That is your Final Four in the NWSL. All right, so news of the day as we continue to work our way through all of this stuff. Biggest news probably for Liverpool fans, Diogo Jota will miss the World Cup. And it says, basically as of about an hour ago, ruled out for months with a calf injury. Carried off on a stretcher late in the 1-0 win over Manchester City. Jurgen Klopp, it's really not good news about Diogo. Yes, he will miss the World Cup. Pretty serious injury in the calf. And now the recovery process starts. That's it pretty much. And then Diogo Jota on his social media. After such a good night at Anfield, mine ended in the worst way. In the last minute, one of my dreams collapsed. I will be one more supporting from the outside club and country and fighting to be back as soon as possible. You'll never walk alone. Continuing from Klopp, that's the first diagnosis, which was pretty clear, and all the rest will now follow in the next few days. Very sad news for the boy and for us as well, of course, for Portugal. But no, he doesn't need an operation. It'll have a big impact, so now he can say that because he will not be in for a long time. We talk about months, so we will see. This is Jurgen Klopp still. I don't want to put now a number on it because I always hope in the middle of the rehab there's a very positive development. We can cut days off the rehab phase, but it will be long. Other news this morning. Jose Mourinho says Chris Smalling should be selected by England for the World Cup, and the Roma defender is not getting the opportunity he deserves, end quote. Smalling has become a first-team regular for Roma after moving from Manchester United in 2019, and Mourinho believes that Smalling is being harshly treated. He was taught to play in a two-man defense in Manchester, but now he's got the perfect acumen to play in a three-man back line. If I were the coach of the national team, once again, this is Mourinho, I would do anything to have someone like him at my disposal. I don't think it's a lack of respect to Gareth Southgate when I say that. I feel very sorry for a player who's playing at such a high level like Smalling and who won't get the opportunity he deserves. Everton manager Frank Lampard admits Dominic Calvert-Lewin cannot begin to think about his World Cup hopes until he has started producing. Strikers managed just 38 minutes of football, the same as Dele Alli, who was loaned to Besiktas at the end of August after a knee injury on the eve of the season. Lampard has been holding back the 25-year-old in an attempt to ensure he reaches peak fitness with no further setbacks. But even after back-to-back substitution appearances, the Toffees boss remains cautious. Calvert-Lewin needs a run of games to even put himself in consideration to overtake Ivan Toney, which I don't think he'll do. But Lampard wants him to start performing at Everton first. Once again, we mentioned Antonio Conte said Richarlison is fit for the World Cup. So news for Richarlison and Brazil. Aston Villa looks like they have earmarked, that's an interesting word, they've earmarked Mauricio Pochettino as a replacement for Steven Gerrard. From the Daily Telegraph, Villa will make an ambitious attempt to convince Mauricio Pochettino to step back into management with the Midlands club as Gerrard enters the most critical week of his year in charge. Wolves have interviewed Peter Bosz, the former Borussia Dortmund and Ajax manager, as they intensify their search for a new head coach. They've also looked in the championship with the current head coach of QPR, and they're still looking at Nuno Espirito Santo. Why? But those are your three. Brentford have opened talks with manager Thomas Frank over a new deal, despite the fact he only signed his latest deal in January. Daily Mirror, Atletico Madrid boss Diego Simeone has dismissed the possibility of Cristiano Ronaldo joining the club amid suggestions Joao Felix could move the opposite way. Barcelona midfielder Frankie de Jong has criticized, quote, a campaign with lots of lies regarding his salary amid this summer's transfer saga linking him with an exit. Reported Arsenal transfer target Orson Koshu has explained his religion made him feel uncomfortable with the idea of wearing a captain's armband supporting the LGBTQ plus community. Daily Express. Chelsea's pursuit of Rafael Leao has suffered a blow after AC Milan chiefs intimated they would meet with the player's father at the Ballon d'Or ceremony to discuss a new contract. Arsenal are, quote, ready, end quote, to make two signings in January if the right players are available, according to reports. Mikel Arteta claimed to want both a central midfielder and a winger, if possible. Rangers ace Leon King advised to reject any potential moves to Manchester United and Newcastle after the defender was linked with a transfer to the Premier League. Tottenham have been told that selling Harry Kane for the £88 million in the summer would represent good business, as he's been linked to a move to Chelsea and Bayern Munich. So £88 million. We'll keep an eye on that number. Avoiding the 3- and 4-letter papers, the Times, Neymar is due to give evidence in a Spanish court today as he faces charges of fraud and corruption, for which prosecutors are seeking a 2-year prison term and a €10 million fine. I'm sure that Neymar would sit there and go, dude, you got change for a 20? Not have to worry about it. Premier League is in talks with clubs about a new preseason tournament to be held in the United States. It would be involving, I think, 6 teams in a round-robin format. Michael Carrick is on the brink of becoming the new head coach of Middlesbrough. Could be in charge for the game against Huddersfield on Saturday. Sunderland reiterated their zero-tolerance policy and discrimination after former winger James McLean was targeted by a section of the Stadium of Light crowd. At least 93 cases of migrant worker abuse have been recorded in Qatar in the year before the World Cup, according to the Business and Human Rights Resource Center. And an independent report by leading academics into the chaos at May's Champions League final claims police treatment of fans, quote, constituted criminal assault. And if I'm not mistaken, BBC Panorama has their next episode in dealing with the Champions League final. So when I come across that, and we'll see what is there, we'll take a peek at that as well. Daily Record, Giovan Bronckhorst set to be handed a boost with Leon King, poised to dodge an SFA rap for his last gasp lunge on Motherwell Stuart McKinstry. We talked about Shunsuke Nakamura yesterday, and Mika Lustig insists that now's the time for him to retire as he prepares to hang up his boots. So That is one round of gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We'll see what today's other gossip is, courtesy of our friends at the BBC. Let's see. Anything different? Chelsea manager Graham Potter keen on reuniting with Brighton forward Leandro Trossard at Stamford Bridge. Sporting director Dan Ashworth also wants to bring the Belgium international to Newcastle. N'Golo Kante has not reached an agreement yet with Chelsea to sign a new deal, feeling that, according to Fabrizio Romano, the 31-year-old could leave as a free agent next summer. Also on the board, agent of Victor Osimhen at Napoli says that the 23-year-old Nigeria international has no intention of leaving the Serie A club, despite interest of Manchester United and Arsenal. Let's see. There goes the Daniel Leao. And so, because we're discussing Neymar, likely to miss their League match with Ajaccio on Friday because he's supposed to schedule. And this goes back to the 2013 transfer from Santos to Barcelona. That's your background. Let's see. Juve are prepared to sell 24-year-old U.S. midfielder Weston McKennie, who is liked by Spurs. So keep an eye on that one. That's courtesy of our friends at Calcio Mercato. And Atletico Madrid could be prepared to sell Argentina midfielder Rodrigo de Paul, with Juve monitoring the 28-year-old's situation. That is, once again, courtesy of our friends at Calcio Mercato this morning. Getting into schedules and things. Remember, this is a midweek weekend. All right, technically it's a midweek weekend for the Premier League. We'll get into those matches coming up in just a little bit. Looking at your activity and your schedules, that's good that we're showing stuff from, that's not today. I don't know where that came from. So why don't we do this? Why don't we actually hit the rewind button and clear things out a little bit, and we'll see what's going on. So we got a lot of action going on right now in the Middle East, North Africa, Eastern Europe. No surprise. We have cup competitions going on, and keep an eye out on the ESPN family of networks, because they're going to be showing some activity in the DFB Pokal. Coppa Italia is going on at noon. Genoa and Spal. Genoa, obviously a big favorite. Looking at other activity getting us into the early part of the afternoon. EFL Trophy is going on. So if you really, really like lower division Trophy Cup competition, that's what's going on starting at 2 o'clock. Brighton and Nottingham Forest is at 2:30. No surprise, Brighton is a minus 250, with Nottingham Forest coming to town at a plus 750. 3 matches in the championship at 2:45. Huddersfield, Preston North End. Juice Boxers throw a blanket over the whole thing, pretty much all within the margin of error. Norwich a favorite with visiting Luton Town. Swansea at a plus 106 hosting Reading. Sorry, Jess at a plus 274. FA Cup is going on also at 2:45 in the lower divisions. So you've got that as well. 3 matches in the championship at 3 o'clock. Blackburn hosting Sunderland at a plus 129. Stoke of minus 118 hosting Rotherham. And West Brom, interesting considering where they are in the table, are a minus 137 at home as they're fighting relegation right now. Bristol City's a plus 363. More Coppa Italia at 3 o'clock. Atletico Madrid and Rayo Vallecano is at 3 o'clock. Atletico Madrid is a minus 179. And Rayo's a plus 610. Crystal Palace and Wolves is at 315. Crystal Palace a plus 129. Wolves a plus 249. Colón de Santa Fe and Defensa y Justicia are at 330. Defensa is a road dog at a plus 204. Lanús and Racing Club is at 6 o'clock. Racing Club is a minus 102 at Lanús. Venezuela Primera, Argentina Primera at 8:30. Wraps up the night. Huracan is a minus 147 hosting Platense. Tigre is a plus 119 at Central Cordoba. So looking at where you can watch all of these things, and once again, if you're in a position to, fntz.co/soccer down here, and you get Fanatis and everything that they can give you in Central and South American play, plus BN Sports. A lot of things that you can get at Fanatis. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you'd like to, fntz.co/soccer down here. So today, ACC Network has men's soccer at 7, FS2 right now has started the second match of the U17 Women's World Cup on the day with France and Japan. You've got ESPN2 has the Sevilla-Valencia match at 12:50. USA has Brighton and Nottingham Forest at 2:30. ESPN Deportes, a doubleheader in La Liga at 1 and 3. That includes Atletico Madrid. Universo is your simulcast partner for the Premier League. 6 matches in ACC soccer on ACC Extra starting at 6. ESPN Plus has Championship at 2:55. 5 matches in the German Cup starting in an hour and a half. La Liga triple header starting, or 3 matches access starting at 12:50. A lot of men's action starting at 2 on the college side. A lot of women's action starting at 7. Paramount Plus has your doubleheader in the Coppa Italia noon and 3. Scottish League Cup, Kilmarnock and Dundee United at 2:45. 4 matches in the Argentina Primera at 3:36 and at 8:30. And Peacock is your other partner for the Crystal Palace Wolves match at 3:15. And that is your lay of the land for your viewing habits for the day when it comes to everything going on in the world of soccer. So once again, really busy day when it comes to everything going on in the world game. And yesterday we were discussing what was going on with Major League Soccer with the 2 matches that we saw earlier. So we saw last night, Dallas going all the way to penalties before getting the Duke over Minnesota United. And your early match was the end of it for Gonzalo Higuain. And like I said, I want to discuss that with Dylan when he comes on tomorrow. Dylan Butler, MLS Soccer and OSDB Sports, about Gonzalo Higuain and what it was like at Citi Field, because I know that we've been jumping on Citi Field. We've been jumping on Major League Soccer. We've been jumping on NYCFC, rightfully so, I think. And so it'll be good to catch up with Dylan and get his vibes for what is going on in Major League Soccer. But remember, wasting no real time, considering it's Tuesday, we've got a doubleheader Thursday night now. It's Thursday and Sunday to get us squared away for conference finals, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, the 30th of October. So right now, Philadelphia hosting Cincinnati. Philadelphia, obviously the big favorite at home, and it's going to be like staring in a mirror. Philadelphia to -155. Cincinnati is a +360. That's early juice boxes courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. LAFC and LA. Sorry, all right. Yes, allegedly, tentatively, let's stay healthy. I like El Tráfico. I'll use the name. I know it drives Jason crazy. As someone who grew up in it, I have no qualm about using El Tráfico. But LAFC and LAG is going to be an interesting one. Thursday night late. We'll be able to talk about it on Friday morning. And then on the weekend, Montreal, even money at Stade Saputo, hosting NYC. And then the nightcap, both the matches on Thursday are on FS1. Both the matches on Sunday are on ESPN. So it's 1 o'clock, 8 o'clock Sunday, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock on Thursday. Austin is a -110 hosting Dallas right now. So you've got a Copa Tejas, you've got an El Tráfico, you've got Montreal hosting NYCFC. Still no updates on Tavon Gray and on Talis Magno, who were not needed in the match against defense optional Inter Miami last night when they won 3-0 over Inter Miami. But then Philadelphia, Cincinnati. So it's going to be really interesting stuff. Mirror images, a rivalry, a team that kind of flies below the radar in Montreal, and Copa Tejas. Those are your 4 matches when it comes to everything going on in Major League Soccer. All right, so my question for all of you guys, and I admit that I'm having more questions this morning than I've had, because things just pop up in your head, The Panenka that Alan Velasco did in the bottom of the 5th to win it for FC Dallas, could you do that yourself? Bottom of the 5th, could you do that? Would you call upon yourself to have the confidence to shoot a Panenka to secure a victory for your team to advance you into the next round? Could you have the confidence to do it? Have you had the confidence to do it in the past? So that's another question as we're here in hour number 2. Could you do it? Have you done it? Would you have that kind of confidence in yourself to do a Panenka? Niall, nope. And that's why I wanted to bring up Will Trapp as a part of the discussion in the penalty kicks, because Will Trapp in the second frame, in the second inning, looked like he didn't want anything to do with it for Minnesota. And it showed. It was an easy grab for Pice, an easy save for him, and that gave them the instant advantage. And you're trying to hope that your keeper can force something, or that somebody skies something like that. So, yeah, that was, and Kefsey, not a chance. Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know if I would have the confidence / cockiness to do something like that. I mean, I would probably end up leaning back, and it would end up rocketing its way into like row Z or something, like the 30th row. I'd be leaning so far back because of everything that was on my mind at the time. So no, I certainly wouldn't, but I wanted to ask all of you guys, where are these extra innings coming from? I'm blending my sports metaphors, Kefsey. I know that's no surprise. Frame, inning, it's like bowling or baseball, or insert, whichever here. So so that's kind of what was on my mind for yet another question to the floor this morning. Who would have the grapefruits to do that kind of stuff? Certainly not me. Other stuff from this morning from our friend Ben Jacobs at CBS Sports. Eddie Howe has asked, says Alexander Isak almost certain to be out until after the World Cup with a thigh injury. Quote, we don't think we'll see Alex back before the World Cup. Unfortunately, he's had a setback. Very frustrating for him as a new player in this league. Situation with Denis Zakaria described as very fragile. Very real chance the loan spell could be cut short. Zakaria is not only frustrated at the lack of game time, he was disappointed by Thomas Tuchel's departure and fears Chelsea will only add to the midfield in January. Graham Potter has already spoken to Zakaria to reassure him he'll get a chance, but a more formal meeting will take place later this week. He had two other loan options, one in the Premier League last window. Chose Chelsea because he thought he'd get minutes. According to Jacobs, Zakaria is short on confidence and sharpness. Tuchel was surprised by how much work needed to be done to get him up to speed, but was convinced he had potential, having been a fan during his time at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Never hit the same level as back then since leaving for Juve. Graham Potter also stresses that no decision has been made on Zakaria's future. Further meetings will be held on Zakaria's future this week. Also mentioning Wolves, and we mentioned the Wolves opening and Peter Bosch being a part of it. QPR's Michael Beale is under active consideration. Nuno, and once again, after failing to persuade Julian Lopetegui, Wolves hope to make an appointment by the end of the week. The club have also discussed ex-Monaco manager Leonardo Jardim, and they've interviewed Rob Edwards. Sean Dyche is not in the mix when it comes to that particular opening. So, that's where we are with those. Couple of other folks that I wanted to try and find before we go, and I'm trying to find the story. This is what happens when you don't write stuff down. I think it was a Martin Ziegler, and it had to do with what we were seeing in Qatar. Okay, so the U.S. has joined calls for FIFA and Qatar to pay $390 million for migrant worker families. And so that's what you're looking at there with so of course I'm sitting here looking at I'm trying to gauge what's going on with the Sunday Times, and of course it's asking me for my subscription information instead of wanting to read more than just headlines and things like that. All right, so fine, I'll just read the headline. U.S. Soccer joins calls for FIFA to compensate families of workers in Qatar injured or killed. Human Rights Watch says it's an embarrassment that it has yet to commit to a fund. So as of right now, human rights organizations say it's an embarrassment. FIFA has yet to commit to a fund, and so U.S. joins calls for FIFA and Qatar to pay $390 million to migrant worker families. So, sadly, I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. But we've seen what Martin Ziegler so Martin Ziegler put that out this morning from our friends at the Times. Cassie, if you're doing the innings by 10-minute brackets, I guess I get it. And being an old school guy, I don't like pitch clocks, and I understand all of the coaching of all of the pitching changes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for me, it's like either bowling or baseball, and I always drift in and out of all of my discussions. Top half, bottom half. As a kid, that was brought up on baseball. That's why I ended up doing it like that. So yeah, so that's your latest out of Martin Ziegler, and a lot going on in and around this or any other planet when it comes to material. Last call for anything that is on your mind before we go. And once again, the salaries. Yeah, I wanted to get into that. So Stephen Goff yesterday got into the guaranteed numbers for MLS summer signings, and that was when the MLSPA put out the numbers. Insigne is making $14 million. That's an MLS record. Bernadeschi, 6.2. Ache Herrera at Houston, 5.2. Christian Benteke at DC, 4.1. Not a whole lot of return there for DC in general. And I think Goff put out the numbers I'll get into in just a second. Cucho Hernandez at Columbus made 2.8. Gareth Bale at 2.3. That's his annualized guaranteed money. So taking it prorated, that's why he's under that 1.6 million number that you're looking at. But it will be interesting to see how LAFC adjusts that number when this season's over and you're heading into next year, and seeing how things are worked. Does Bale get elevated to a DP status, or do they try to figure out other ways to circumnavigate what we've seen when it comes to cap numbers and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, Kefsey, I believe so. Potential World Cup squad member with Dybala out, I would say yes. And with everyone getting injured, that creates more of an opportunity for Thiago Almada. And I will maintain that unless, and I mean this is the major league unless, Almada is going to be a part of the Argentine squad, and then if he makes it, and if he makes it to Qatar and he gets minutes and all those kinds of things, unless it is the offer that you cannot refuse. And I mean, underline, exclamate, italicize, boldface, print with 9 exclamation points. I would see that Almada probably has one more season in Atlanta with Atlanta United and take it to the summer transfer window, which would make it even more difficult for Atlanta United to release him to that offer. But my gut tells me it's going to be, if this upward trajectory continues for Thiago Almada, it's going to be after next season. Then he moves on to his next challenge. So that's just me. So yes, KFC, potential World Cup squad member, yes. So keep an eye on that. Other salary figures, Rigoni came in at 2.2, but once again, a lot of this stuff, probably prorated. 2.2 annualized, but half of that ish when it comes to your salary cap and what's navigated. Bouanga and Tello, 2 and 1.7, Vrioni at 1.7, and Ricky Puig at 1.7. DC signings, you had a couple that were just under $1 million, and the salary guide, and I know that we got into a lot of that stuff yesterday. So looking at, and of course, I want to sit here and I want to look at teams instead of players. All right. So Thiago Almada, guaranteed compensation at 2.3, base salary of 1.6. Ozzy Alonso, Mikey Ambrose, both league minimums at 84. Luis, guaranteed compensation of 4.48, his base salary at 3.6. Ezequiel Barco still listed as being on the books at 2.2. Remember, he still has it's a 2-year loan to River Plate, so we'll keep an eye on that. A couple of others that were of note. You're looking at Alan Franco at 2/3 $1 million. Gudinho, Gutman, Gazan, Hernandez, all 6 figures. Emerson Heineman at $650,000. We know that he will be a decision He'll be part of the decision making that the front office has to look at here in the offseason. Franco Ibarra, Brooks Lennon, both 450 and 5. Joseph had a salary of 3.7 and guaranteed compensation of 4.1. So Luis had less salary, higher guaranteed compensation, about $800,000 more. Joseph right now, Joseph's numbers: base salary 3.75, guaranteed compensation 4.1. So that's your Joseph numbers. Rookie mins for McFadden and Efren Morales. Marcelino Moreno, 460 in base, 568 in guaranteed compensation. Also 6 figures for Mosquera, Purata, Rocco, Miles, Hosechu. Sadic was veteran minimum, and you're going to need guys like that on this roster because remember, cap league, and you're going to need guys who are going to be just as important as those high-priced guys that you're paying 7 figures to. You're going to need the 85 444s of guys like Ozzy Alonso and who else was at 85? An Alex DeJohn, a Dom Dwyer. Those $84,000 and $85,000 guys, those are going to be just as important as now the Ozzy Alonso at 84 also. They're going to be just as important as those guys that you're paying the 7 figures to when it comes to assembling everything for next season. And so your rookie contracts are at 65.5. Bryce Washington, Caleb Wiley. So that helps you out there in that regard. So just keep an eye on all of this stuff. Average, and this is a note from the MLSPA, average annual guaranteed compensation figure also includes any marketing bonus and any agent's fees, both annualized over the term of the contract. Does not include performance bonuses because there is no guarantee that the player will hit those bonuses. So there you go with the lay of the land when it comes to MLSPA. I wanted to get into that yesterday as well when those numbers finally came out. And when you look at St. Louis as an example, they're paying their keeper well over $1 million. And, if that's what they feel like they should do, then that's what they feel they should do. And I have zero qualm about it because you've got a lot more. You've got a lot more stuff that is laid out for you as an expansion team. And so if you're looking at salary figures, and let me dive back into your salary figures. So really quickly, and let me do it with the idea of St. Louis. So let me look into the St. Louis. Remember, St. Louis as an expansion team, they've got a little bit more money to play with. They know what they want to do style wise, and it will be interesting to see what St. Louis looks like. So guaranteed salaries, not listed according to the MLSPA, but the one salary that did work its way through was Berkey's, and at their keeper, he was making, I think it was 1 I think he was making 1.6 or 1.7. So more power to him. If that's what you feel like you need to do to bring him in, then you've got a little extra money to play with when it comes to your allocation money and all of the money that you have. That's what you want to do with the style that you want to play. That's your prerogative. So the mere fact that you're bringing in folks, you have guys, if you're Lutz Pfannenstiel, you have guys that you've earmarked that you want to be a part of this process. And St. Louis right now, they have guys that they've earmarked. They're paying some guys to be in. We caught up with folks as they were preparing for the MLS Next Pro Championship. You got guys like Juan Kuzain, who are probably going to be vital for them in a salary cap league. Josh Yarrow the same way for this upcoming season. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like for our friends in St. Louis as they get everything prepared for their first season in Major League Soccer. So very, very cool stuff from them as well. Let me make one more tour if there's anything else, once again. Anything else that you guys want to discuss before we go? More power to you, and we will continue to have those kinds of discussions. Thanks once again, everybody, for dropping in and being a part of this every single day that you guys are. And news we'll keep an eye out of lower division stuff out of Milwaukee, and I think that's tomorrow. So lower division stuff out of Milwaukee, we'll keep an eye on that. And we're efforting some other interviews when it comes to other elements of soccer and its growth and other markets and things like that. That'll be a part of the network too as we go forward. But on that note, once again, remember, you've got Premier League action, you've got La Liga, you've got a lot of stuff going on today. Thanks for the discussion earlier today about large tacos and about soccer, because that's what we're all here for. Absolutely, it's what we're all here for. Whatever's on our minds, that's what this forum is all about. And thanks to everybody in the Twitch pitch. Thanks to everybody in the Discord. Thanks to all of you guys that have conversations and want to have the back and forths here every single day when it comes to the world of soccer. And thanks for being a part of soccer down here. So we will be back at it tomorrow. Once again, reminder, your USL programming is up later today. Your Prem and Proper is up later today. And we'll keep an eye on everything going on around the soccer world. Dylan Butler slated to join us tomorrow. And I'll be at Clayton State tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, calling Peach Belt. So that'll be on the PBC Sports Network. And we'll be down there in the Crow's Nest, freezing our you-know-what's off. Freezing our butts off watching Clayton State play soccer. So it'll be fun to be out there, but I'm just wondering what that wind is going to be like coming across the microphone up there in the Crow's Nest down at Clayton State. But we'll be back at it again tomorrow. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for hanging out as you always do. And mucha plata y'all. And since it is the end of the show, traditionally, as always, that means I get to do this. We'll see you tomorrow.